security and sustainable agriculture are going to be a big part of the UN Climate Conference, COP27, in Egypt this November. Let's see a short video from our two upcoming guests about revolutionizing the footprint of dairy in the United States.
Meat Neutral. We're the first carbon neutral food company in the United States, so you can bet we've done our homework. And it became clear that animal-based agriculture, like dairy, accounts for a large portion of greenhouse gases. So we decided to start there. By obsessively measuring the entire carbon footprint of dairy milk, from what the cows eat to how the milk carton is disposed of, we know where we can make the biggest impact in reducing unwanted emissions. And that's right there on the farm. Solutions to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and increase sequestration on farms exist, but they're expensive. That's why we're giving farmers the capital they need to adopt low or no emitting solutions. In 2021, we invested in family-owned farms in Oregon and Washington, reducing emissions by optimizing what cows eat and how nutrients are managed. Over their lifetimes, these projects will avoid more than 3,200 metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent from entering the atmosphere. Next year, we're tripling our investment in family-owned farms across the US. What we can't reduce, we offset through the purchase of carbon credits that are real, additional, and verifiable. This ensures all the neutral products we bring you are 100% carbon neutral. And we do all this so you can make an easy climate-friendly choice the next time you reach for a carton of milk at the grocery store. This is just the beginning of a new revolution in agriculture, a carbon-neutral one.
Welcome to Marcus Lovell Smith, CEO of the climate-friendly food company Neutral, and Anne Radil, Neutral's head of carbon reduction. Welcome to you both.
Thank you.
Anne is a climate scientist, NASA fellow, casual, and comes from a long line of ranchers. She manages a portfolio of on-farm projects that over their lifetime will reduce or remove more than 65,000 metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent. Marcus is a dairy farmer and was a special advisor at the Bill Gates-founded Breakthrough Energy Ventures. He's also an entrepreneur in residence at Harvard University. Okay, so impressive bios. What motivated you to launch Neutral, and what is it that Neutral is really doing different?
Okay, Shweta, thank you. I think there's an increasing realization that food and agricultural systems have a major impact on climate change. And we're the first carbon neutral food company in the US, and we're on a mission to reduce emissions at farm level, hence the sort of farming backgrounds you've just mentioned. So we are trying to habitualize change. It's quite hard, I think it's quite hard as an individual to sort of tackle maritime fuel or aviation or lithium batteries, but everybody can make a difference as a consumer in the foods that they buy. And we're a carbon neutral food company, and we're starting with dairy. And what we do as a company is work very closely with dairy farmers, and increasingly more than that, beef ranchers, to make change at the farm level. And we're in over 2,000 stores now across the United States, in Whole Foods, in Sprouts, in Target, in Erewhon, Hagen, and many others. We're in Fresh Direct and Instacart and Imperfect Foods. And so the company's made enormous progress like that. And you know, we've also been extremely lucky to be backed, as you mentioned earlier, backed by Bill Gates' Breakthrough Energy Ventures, but also Mark Cuban, by David Edelman of Darko Capital, by Questlove, John Legend, LeBron James. We're extraordinarily lucky to have these people involved with us, and Craig Shapiro, and most recently Global Brains from Japan.
So they're clearly seeing that there's a need to green dairy. There's alternatives on the market like almond milk, oat milk, right? Mm-hmm. But you have all of these incredible names that are backing you, intelligent names of people who are backing you to actually green dairy. So the solution isn't necessarily just these alternatives, or is there room for all of these solutions in the toolkit?
I think there is absolute room for all of these solutions, because there's not one thing that fits all. I think, there's something like 90+% of American households still have dairy in their refrigerator. So we are meeting Americans where they are, and that's really where the impact is. So we're working directly with dairy farmers and ultimately beef ranchers to change the course of agriculture. So I think it's a portfolio of solutions, and I think it's very important that we directly address animal-based proteins.
Given the fact that we're meeting people where they are ultimately, we know what products people are still using. Let's make those more aligned to the reality of the environmental challenges we're facing. So in that context, Anne, where does this product sit compared to traditional dairy products and the non-dairy alternatives? What is the carbon footprint of Neutral?
So every product has a carbon footprint. And of course, the carbon footprint is a measurement of the total greenhouse gases emitted during the life cycle of that product. So we recognize that for some consumers who are looking at the carbon footprint of their options, a plant-based diet makes the most sense. But as Marcus mentioned, increasingly Americans are concerned about the effects of climate change, continuing to buy traditional meat and dairy. And so we're meeting those consumers where they're at, providing them with carbon neutral options. I think what differentiates Neutral and the marketplace is that we're carbon neutral today. Many companies are setting emission reduction goals that are farther into the future. We applaud those efforts, of course, but we're carbon neutral today, and we have been since day one. And what that means is that we've rigorously measured the cumulative carbon footprint of our products and eliminated it. So, for example, we directly support producers in helping them to transition to climate smart practices. Tactically, this means we're developing a portfolio of projects that over their lifetime will reduce or remove as much carbon from the atmosphere as is embedded in our products.
Wow, fantastic. So those are the appropriate actions to take to make sure that Neutral is truly neutral, right? How can we be sure? How can the public and authorities be sure that it's being measured accurately?
Yeah, great question. Well, the work of measuring emission reduction starts with my team. I manage a team of experts at Carbon Neutral Neutral Foods who work with with scientists to measure and then independently verify ultimately that the climate benefit that we think will be realized in our projects on farm is in fact realized. And when it comes to measuring the carbon footprint of our products themselves, we partner closely with Dr. Greg Thoma. He's arguably the seminal expert in the United States at measuring the carbon footprint of animal agriculture. He's our chief science advisor. Dr. Thoma spent, for example, 12 years studying the carbon footprint of a gallon of milk.
Wow.
This work led him to evaluate the carbon footprint of over 500 U.S. dairies. With his work with Neutral, we work to fine-tune those calculations, to right-size them, to ensure that they accurately account for the unique life cycle characteristics of our products. And all of our carbon neutral claims are independently verified by a third party.
That's fantastic, and that's needed, right? Yes. You need to have that third-party verification to build that trust. You're being transparent, and that helps build that trust with the public to ensure that it's received. It's received, it's supported, it's a solution that can really get some backing. So kudos to thinking ahead for that type of self-regulation. That's really critical. And it's also setting the stage for what companies that are trying to do similar things should be thinking about. So that's what we like, is to see the leaders in the space really accelerate solutions throughout the entire sector. So what can others do to follow suit? Right now, Marcus, you are buying carbon offset credits. So that's not a long-term plan, however. That's just, given the landscape we're operating in, that's what we need to be doing. Talk to our audience a little bit about what the longer-term, more sustainable, no pun intended, plan really is for Neutral.
It's an absolutely critical question. As Anne said, we start with a very rigorous scientific analysis of what the carbon footprint is in the products we sell. And I mentioned milk. We're also, we have just launched a butter product in the Pacific Northwest. We have a beef product coming out, ground beef product coming out at the end of this year, early next year. So first of all, we measure that. And then the real heart of what we do, the real heart of what Neutral has been set up to do, is to work directly with dairy farmers on very specific projects. And I think Anne may talk about a few of those later, but specific projects at farm level. And anything that we can't actually offset at a farm level, we will buy offsets. But I think it's very important. I think offsets are a perfectly acceptable mechanism. But I think consumers are asking for more, and they're asking more from us. And so now, if you're in the cement industry, you sort out the cement industry. If you're in the iron and steel industry, you sort out that. If you're in the agricultural industry, that's what we're sorting out. So most of the work we do is actually at farm level. Anything that we can't achieve at farm level, we will buy through offsets. But there will be dairy and farm-related offsets. And I think that's the sort of the covenant, if you like, that we have between us and our consumers, that they are working with us on this journey to change the course of agriculture.
So since you posed the question and threw it to Anne, can we get a couple examples from you on what that looks like?
Yeah, absolutely. So with every project that we develop on farm, it begins with a conversation with the producer to better understand his or her operation so we can really tailor what mitigation solutions are the right fit. So we source our milk primarily from really small, family-owned, pasture-based organic dairies. In that type of environment, we know that we typically have 3 solutions that we can implement on the farm to effectively reduce emissions. So first is reducing enteric methane, or the byproduct of digestion itself. We are developing projects that integrate naturally occurring secondary metabolites called tannins into forage and hay, that when the cows eat, all of these amazing things happen. They are healthier and enteric methane is reduced. In addition, we're also using feed supplements. Also in organic dairies, how you measure and manage, or how you manage manure directly impacts the carbon footprint of that farm. And so we're doing things like enabling compost to reduce the methane emissions associated with manure management.
And you're speaking so sophisticated around, I know what this is, and our audience will be familiar with it too. This is reducing the methane that is emitted from cow farts.
Yes, and burps. and burps. Most importantly, burps, yes. And we're also looking at changing how feed is produced. So reducing inputs and adopting a suite of practices commonly referred to as regenerative practices that are absolutely fantastic for soil health and have the potential to increase long-term soil carbon storage.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
These are excellent examples.
Yeah.
And you're really looking at the whole system, right? This is a product that is part of a value chain from all the way from farm to fork, even if it's farm to drink, right? But the idea is that it's an entire process, and you have to look at it in terms of how you can really transition the entire system from the cows to what they're getting fed all the way to the final product. So, okay, so is this one of the things that consumers can do to reduce their carbon footprint? Can they consume neutral milk? Is that an action? Of course, I imagine you will say that will be taken, that consumers can feel good about. But what else in addition to that? What do you recommend from your vantage point as coming from agriculture, but then also, and being a climate scientist, having the big picture, what can consumers do to really make an impact?
I mean, I think that there's so many things that consumers can do, and it starts with a self-journey to figure out what's most impactful for you. Of course, we think that neutral foods are a tremendous way to reduce your carbon footprint, but as importantly, directly support the producers that are willing to do the hard work to adopt these climate smart practices, but need some resources to reduce the very real barriers today that prevent adoption and implementation. So for example, we're working with a really innovative cattle rancher in Eastern Oregon. Her name is Corey Carmen. We're about to work with a very pioneering company called Symbrosia, testing the effectiveness of feeding the cows a very small amount of seaweed supplement to dramatically reduce enteric methane. Past research suggests more than 82% of methane can be reduced this way. We're also working to increase long-term carbon stores, planting trees and on her marginal land. So of course, those are things that we invite producers to be a part of that journey, but there are many actions that producers can take
Please,
on their
Marcus,
own.
yeah. What are the most impactful actions that can be taken by consumers and also those that are specifically engaging with agriculture as part of their work?
It's pretty exciting, I think, that you can actually make a difference through, going 6 inches to the left or 6 inches to the right in the dairy aisle. And I think we will see a carbon neutral, and we won't be the only people, and we don't want to be the only people in that carbon neutral dairy aisle. And to drive change as an individual buyer, consumer, I think is amazing. Certainly as a dairy farmer, I look at our own farm in a very different way. On this journey I've been for the last year or so, I look very differently at the way that we farm and we look at our land. So I can see how you can drive change all the way through from the grocery aisle all the way back into the agricultural systems. And that's whether you buy our carbon neutral milk or ultimately our carbon neutral butter and ground beef, and we talked about Corey Carmen here. And I think it's an exciting moment, and I think it's more than just a glass of milk at the breakfast table. It's actually, if you habitualize that, you will create change. It's very, very powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. This is music to my ears as a behavioral scientist, right? Having these options available and sharing the story, sharing the narrative, and sharing the contribution consumers can make to supporting dairy and agriculture transitioning to becoming part of this clean energy new economy, right? So this is something that, even though it seems that the farm is far away and maybe not something that people have the luxury of engaging with, this is an opportunity to be able to become part of the system just by making better decisions when they're in the grocery store. That's fantastic. So will we be able to overcome this climate crisis? Are we doing enough? What do you think? Coming at this from your unique point of view, as well as both of you have farming backgrounds. What do you think?
Who's first? I mean, for me, it's just, I can see the change that we're making. I'm excited about that. It's an incredibly daunting task, but I can already see in this multitude of projects that we've started and that Anne's team has started that we're making change. I feel optimistic about that, and I see the change. And as I said, I even see, the way I look at agriculture is entirely different now than it was even a few years ago. So I'm optimistic, yeah.
And what do you think? I'm coming to you, Anne,
Yeah.
for the last words as well. What do you think of the future for farming? Is this an exciting future for farmers? Because there's some challenges there to bring people into farming and agriculture and dairy, given all of this pressure that is being experienced.
We've never had a bad conversation with a farmer. That's so interesting. They're a group of people. They're incredibly independent-minded. So first of all, you don't ever go onto a farm and tell a farmer what to do. But
Lesson learned.
But they always have a large list of projects, and they are genuine stewards. They're a rare group of people that really think about the second and third generation in a way. The current systems don't give them necessarily the breadth and scope to do the good work that they do. But for me, not only is this company about carbon, it's also about all of these co-benefits. Because nearly every project we do relates to biodiversity or nutrient runoff or rural equity issues. I mean, I think that carbon neutral, our company, has become more than just actually about carbon.
I agree completely. I think, is the world doing enough? I mean, today, agriculture and our food system contribute globally up to 37% of greenhouse gas emissions, so we need to do more. And we're seeing with evidence in our farm projects, it's incredibly inspiring that we can do more, that our producers are willing to do the hard work, they just need some help in getting there. And it's really exciting to be a part of that farmer journey, as well as seeing consumers responding to, making different milk choices that can create a whole new food system.
Okay, so the future is bright for farmers. It's bright for transitioning agriculture to a world that really supports a cleaner, more breathable future for all, right? That's what we're all trying to accomplish here. So thank you so much for the contribution you are making, and all the best to Neutral and beyond.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
Yeah.